Good morning, guys. Welcome to this Wednesday, September 17th. And we got a bit of weakness in the overnight, pretty much holding where we left it though. Not anything crazy going on. Today is the big announcement day. So yesterday it turned into more of a holding pattern, kind of a day. They backed off the highs in a holding pattern, waiting for the Fed announcement to come out and of course, the press conference and what the stance is going to be going forward. So that's going to be the big thing for today's trading. Now, the news for today, though, in mortgage apps at 7 came out. They were way up, way up, 25% to the upside on composite and refinance. So yeah, the mortgage rates are dropping and people are jumping on it. That's happening. A little bit of activity in that arena. So mortgage apps up big. Housing starts and permits coming out at 8:30. At 10 o'clock, we get Atlanta Fed business inflation expectations. Oil report at 10:30. All that stuff is going to be totally dwarfed when we get the announcement at 2. So I don't think the announcement at 2 is going to be a big deal. There's going to be a quarter point cut, widely believed. I don't think that's going to be a big surprise. 50 would be a surprise, I think. No cut would be a surprise, but 25 would be pretty much what they expect. And then, of course, a half hour later, when the press conference comes on, it's going to be interesting to see what the rationale is and what the stance is going to be going forward. So that's when I think the markets can really either take off to the upside or potentially close this gap and head right back down here to the below the 6600s. So we will see. So we're still in the gap up. We haven't attempted to close the gap though. We haven't seen a straight shot to the upside afterwards. A couple of days of extension and now we're backing off a little bit. And I would actually be looking for a retest of these support areas at the 66.55s and the 40s for still looking at put a bias to the upside and would favor the long side. Not necessarily leaning long right now, I'm more range bound going into today's session. But I would favor the long side until they take out the 66.40s and start retracing. If that starts happening, I would look for that retracement trade back here to that lower range at the 65.90s. So that's a big area where we don't have nothing to lean against. It could be just a probe below it. You never know how far they're going to take it. Could be a complete gap closure going on there. We just have to kind of see how it develops if it occurs. So that's kind of what we're looking at going into today's trading. Now, not a whole lot of news to drive the market in the morning. I think none of the morning news is really it's going to be market moving in that sense. Announcement is what's going to be moving the market. So I would probably expect more of a range bound day, sideways action, back and forth. Maybe a little bit of early weakness, testing that 66.55 or the 40s in the early morning hours, and then basically stay range bound. That's kind of what I would expect. Caveat is always if they take out that 66.40s, I would be looking for that retracement trade to the downside. I would be more aggressive on the short side, see if how far they can retrace it. And of course, if they for some reason start heading higher here above that 66.80s, I would be well, maybe 66.90, 80s and 90s, these two resistance areas. If they take out the high of yesterday's day session, I would be more inclined to lean on the long side and see how far they want to take it. Looks to me at that point I would try to take it higher. I doubt that's going to happen going into the before the number comes out. So there would be an odd reaction. If anything, I would be expecting some early weakness and maybe range-bound trading until we get past the number and the press conference, and we'll see how it develops after that. All right, so that's the ES to get started. So initially, range-bound, primarily looking to buy early weakness. The 66.60s, so where we are trading, the 50s, 55s, 40s for rotations back up. That's kind of the dynamic. Below 40s, look for that potential retracement trade to the downside. On the way up, looking for shorts against the 66.75s, 80s, 88 to 90s for rotations back down. above 88 to 90s, leaning on the long side. I think we're heading higher at that point. All right. So that's kind of where we are on the ES to get started. But the big news today is going to come at 2 o'clock Eastern Fed announcement, and then at 2:30 the press conference. Now looking at the bonds and the Nasdaq, so bond market is a bit to the upside. They extended a little bit to the upside so far. Feels very much like they're trying to take it higher, but so far they've been pretty range bound around at 17, 16. So I would just assume it's going to stay the same, at least until we get to the number this afternoon. So I would look to sell strength, buy weakness. We are pushing a little bit to the upside. But I would just assume I would just treat this range band right now and look to sell strength, 1806s, 10s, up to the 16 to 18s, rotations back down. Looking to buy weakness, 118s, 1726s, 1720s, rotations back up again, maybe down to 17, 15, 16 here as well. But below the 17, 15, 16, I think we are heading heading down to towards this attractor at the 17s. A little smaller attractor there in this distribution. And if they start taking out that 1810, I think we are extending to the upside at that point. As you see, we don't have anything. This is kind of the high of the session, the 11810. So that comes out. I would be leaning on the long side. Still looking for a short against that 18, 16 to 18, but with a bit of caution at that point. All right, so starting off range band looks to me like the bond market is trying to trade higher. Yields looks like they're trying to come down, but that could turn on a dime. Rate depending on what Powell says and what the announcement really is. But I think that quarter point is pretty much built in right now. So the everything kind of hinges on what the any surprise on that side or what he says in the press conference. On the Nasdaq side of things, also gap up, holding on pretty good here at the 24,500. Looking to buy weakness. Well, I should say same as the ES, primarily range bound. I would favor the long side, looking to buy weakness. But I'm expecting more range bound trading, maybe some early weakness, and then range bound trading for going into that number. So initially looking to buy against support at the 475s, 450s, 410 to 20s for rotations back up. And I would say below that 420 level, potential buying opportunities against the 380s and the 320s at that point. But we could see a nice little move down here to test the 320s if that starts happening, if they start taking out that 410 level. And then, of course, if they take out the 320s, 330s here, then we're looking for a gap closure. But we had a pretty good extension here after the gap up, so we got a bit of retracement to do here before we really start getting into a gap closure situation. So I think we get probably a little bit more warning on the Nasdaq that something is up if they start heading lower. But as I said, going into today's trading, I'm expecting more range bound trading. I would still favor the long side and see how far I can take it on the see what happens after the announcement and after the press conference. That's when I think we may see the market actually moving. And on the way up, looking for short setups against that 540s, the 580s for rotations back down. This one should be a tad higher there. So 580s for rotations back down. And about that 580, I would lean in on the long side at that point. Not because I'm not what I would expect, but if they stick out that high at 580, 590 here, then I would expect them to try to test the 640s, maybe even take this higher. So that would be not an awkward, but that would be an odd reaction if the market would trade higher into the number. But that's, we'll see how the market reacts as the session kicks in. And what I would expect is more range-bound trading before we get the numbers. So I would be looking to sell against those areas, the 550s and 580 to 90s. Looking to buy against support, 480s, 450s, 420s for rotations back up. Below 420s, potential retracement trade down here to these lower levels. So, and definitely below that 320, that comes out, we are in the gap closure mode at that point. So I would be a little bit more aggressive on the short side at that point. But if that's not happening prior to the announcement, that's kind of when you can react like this to it. After the announcement, you kind of had to digest what the numbers are and kind of trade what the reaction is on that, because that could turn everything upside down. All right, so that's the ES and the Nasdaq to get started. Oil and gold. So oil pretty much range bound. Not a whole lot to say about it. They were up here, traded up to the 64.75s, backing off a bit in the overnight. I'm just assuming that up here testing the upper edges now. So still range bound trading on oil. I believe this is the last day on the October expiration. Going to roll to November for tomorrow's trading after the close. So DS can back up here to this upper area, the 64.50. So looking for they could potentially push this a little bit higher, but ultimately I'm looking for retracement back to that 63, 64 level. So range bound trading on oil. I would be looking to get short for short opportunities. Starting off with a slight bias to the upside, or I should say looking for early strength, given that they're trying to run up here and test these upper edges. And I think maybe the overnight in order to set the stage in terms of early weakness. So, but I would look for shorts against the 64.40s, 64.70s, maybe even up to 65.20s for rotations down. I would look to buy against support at 64.08s, 63.75, and below 63.70. I'm taking off any long bias or any attempt, any early weakness expectation, and go back to right flat out range bound at that point. So that's how we get started on oil. Has been pretty boring trading on oil lately. It's pretty much not going anywhere. Big reactions and then nothing. So unless you're in the trade when the reaction happens, you're not getting any. And if you know what the reaction is, then you're pretty good. So that's why I haven't traded oil, staying away from that for now. Gold, it has a little bit more opportunity to it, but it's pretty volatile. Right now, it looks like it's kind of settling in a little bit, taking a breather. Had a pretty good move to the upside. It looked like they were extending here the other day. Now it looks like they're backing down here towards that attractor again, the 3680s. So this move out in the middle looks like it could reverse. Right now, it's just reverse retesting the breakout point at 36.95. So as long as that holds, they can still take this right back up again. So these are great buying opportunities here, at least against the 36.95. If you're still thinking long side of the market, buying against that 95 and the 36.90s for rotations up, that's kind of where you want to get long for rotations up. If they take it out, you want to have your stop pretty tight and get out of that trade pretty quick. Because at that point, they're at least going to head down to that 36.80s, maybe even lower at that point. So gold, reverse retesting in our breakout point, 36.95. You see that nice volume edge right there. That's kind of what they're breaking, what they are reverse retesting. And if they start trading up above this area, the 36 or 37.06s, I would look for a potential retracement up here to the 36.15. And if they trade above the 15s here, 14.15s, I would just be back on that long side and see how far they can take it at that point. At that point, I think that reverse retest held and they are extending back up again at that point. So that's where we are on gold. Look for potential buying opportunities down here at the 36.96 and 36.90 for rotations up. Looking for shorts against these 06 and the 15s with a lot of caution. If it starts trading back up again, it could most likely be a reverse retest failure, and they're likely to take it higher. But if you get some early strength in the morning and they start retracing this, they could be too short up here and against either of those two. Not higher than that. Above that, I would just go back on the long side of this. So that's a little bit of nuance on that one, but yeah, that's kind of where we are on gold. All right, so that's oil and gold to get started. back to the ES and kind of where we left it. So nothing much going on there. So both on ES and the Nasdaq, expecting range bound trading, uh, going into the number at 2 o'clock, and then we'll see how the things develop after that. That's when I think the big changes may come. Watch that low rate 66.40s on the ES that comes out. We may have a pretty good move to the downside. A little retracement trade going on. And if 66.60 comes out, I would be staying and looking for more early weakness to test that 66.50 and the potential 40s here. So that could be a potential short early on trade break as they initiate any early weakness. They would have to take out that 60s, and that would be your aggressive opportunity to get short. But it's always difficult because when it starts happening, you kind of you're not going to have any perfect information to get short with. So I would just prefer to wait and be a little bit patient about it and watch for 66.40 to come out, and that it's going to give you a lot better confirmation that things are heading lower if that's happening. All right, guys, so we'll wrap it there for now. So good trading, and I will see you guys back at 11:30 for the next update. All right, guys, later.